I was 6 years old when my dad died. He died in a helicopter next to a very, very wealthy person on the way home from a business trip. 17 years later, I ended up in the same country that he used to come to, building the same kind of network he was building when he died. Nobody planned that. Nobody told me to do it, and for a long time I didn't even realize it was happening. I want to tell this story properly. I've never told it fully, not in a vlog, not in a podcast. I've alluded to it, I've mentioned it, but I've never sat down and explained how the life I'm living right now is connected to a man that I never really got to know. So my dad was an entrepreneur. He built businesses. He had a very, very serious network. He knew people most kids only really see on TV, the people who were really behind the whole Chelsea structure. And he came to Thailand multiple times, Bangkok specifically, the same city I now live in. I didn't know any of this when I was younger. I knew the names, I'd heard the stories, but I didn't connect any of it to what I was doing until much later. And the connection is still hitting me now. I was 6 years old. I remember exactly the moment I found out. What I do remember is the after. The way the house felt for the next year, the way people looked at me, and the way other people in my family would say things like, "You walk just like him, you laugh just like him, you're just like him." Things they meant kindly. Things that were meant to comfort me. Things that just made me more confused about who I was really supposed to be. When it came to being in secondary school, I had therapy for years. I don't talk about that much, but I needed it. Because the strange part of losing a parent that young isn't necessarily the grief, it's the void. As you spend the next 15 years trying to piece together who your dad really was from other people's stories, photos, memories, the way someone's voice changes when they bring him up. You build a version of him in your head out of fragments. And you spend your whole adolescence trying to figure out if you measure up to a man who isn't there to confirm what he wanted you to be. And the part nobody warns you about, you don't grieve once, you grieve in stages. At 10, at 15, at 22, even at 25. Every time you hit a milestone he should have seen, you grieve him again, slightly differently. And there's another part of this that I've never said out loud on camera. After my dad died, his side of the family, my older sister, his parents, his siblings, didn't really stay in my life. Not in any meaningful way. Birthdays, Christmases, milestones, none of it. I never heard anything. I learned at 6 years old that blood doesn't make a family, presence does. That sounds like a quote, it isn't. It's just what I lived. A 19-year-old who came into my mum's life broke as fuck around a year after I was born, took the responsibility of raising me just like his own. And it's the kind of love that I'll never forget for the rest of my life, and that I'll do anything to pay back. When I was 17, I lost my granddad. He was the man closest to me on my mum's side. He was a figure who'd stepped into the gap that my dad left. He taught me things like how to drive, he taught me how to ride a bike, and I was in the room when he died. My nan came to my door, I ran over, my uncle was already there doing CPR. I walked in and saw him on the ground. I was touching him while it was happening. He didn't make it. That day I became the man of the Klein family. There weren't enough other men in my family for the role to fall on anyone else. I was 17, and I was suddenly the one who had to hold things together. For my mum, for my nan, for all of us. I wasn't ready. Nobody is really ready at 17, but ready stopped being relevant. After that, I tried to go down the conventional path, sixth form, university. I dropped out within, I'd say, a month. I was doing more drugs than learning. I wasn't progressing, I wasn't building anything. I was just delaying the question of what I was actually going to do with my life. So I went into jobs, real jobs, the kind that nobody really glamorizes. Amazon, stacking shelves at the warehouse, Urban Outfitters, shop floor, laboring for a bricklayer, carrying cement, building walls, coming home covered in dust, exhausted and broke. But every single day of those jobs, I was carrying this feeling that I wasn't where I was meant to be, that I was wasting time someone else didn't get to have. That feeling is the most useful thing I've ever felt. It's what eventually pushed me into crypto. I got into crypto in 2021, like a lot of other people did. The difference is I didn't get out. I went deeper. I started reading everything I could, studying patterns, watching wallets, tracking liquidity, talking to people who had been in the space way longer than I had. Of course, I made some stupid mistakes along the way. In my first bull run in 2021, I actually lost £500,000, went almost flat broke, back to my last $10,000 that I used to trade with for the next cycle. But by 2024, that was the year it clicked. I called Pepe at 5 million market cap, it ran to over 10 billion. I got into Chill Guy at 5 million, it ran to 500 million. I hit big crazy licks off the likes of Casper, Injective, and I firmly believe that I called more 100Xs than anybody else that had no inside information. I made more money in 12 months than I made in a whole lifetime of jobs combined. And for the first time in my life, I had options. But here's the strange part. When the money came in, I didn't feel what I thought I'd feel. In January 2025, I hit my first 200K month for the first time since 2021. I thought I'd feel different. I didn't really feel anything. It's just a number on a screen. In the same apartment and the same problems and the same friend. Most of who didn't understand what I was building and how I'd done it. That's when I started realizing something I hadn't been able to articulate before. The goal was never the money. The goal was a version of myself that I thought making the money would create. And money doesn't actually deliver that. It just removes one excuse for why you haven't really become him yet. I came to Bangkok for the first time and something clicked. Not in some Instagram travel bro way, not because of the weather or the food or the lifestyle, because for the first time I was surrounded by people who got it. Other entrepreneurs, other operators, other people that had figured out that you don't build the life you want in a city designed to keep you small. And then slowly I started realizing why this place felt so familiar. My dad used to come here, Bangkok, the exact city. I'd ended up in the same place he'd been building his network 17 years before I was old enough to spell it. I want to be careful with how I say this, but you'd have to ignore the data to ignore the pattern. My dad was an entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur. I'm building a network. My dad was coming to Thailand. I've been living in Thailand for 2 years. Different timeline, different generation, different specifics, but the exact same blueprint. And I didn't follow him there. I didn't have a path to follow. I never got to ask him anything. Most of what I know about who he was, I pieced together myself. But somewhere underneath everything, the obsession, the urgency, the constant pull towards something bigger, I ended up at the exact same place he was. That's where the 1% came from. Not a business plan, not from a market gap, not from chasing a trend, from the fact that the family I needed wasn't biological, from the fact that the network my dad had been building when he died was the same network I had to build to feel whole, from the fact that loneliness of getting rich young is real, and nobody talks about it, and there isn't a course in the world that fixes it. The 1% is the family I didn't have, the room I wish existed when I was 19. I built it for the version of me that needed it, and it turns out there are a lot of versions of him out there. What we do isn't a community. I never use that word. Community implies you're paying to be part of something soft. This is a network, it's a room, it's an environment. It's 50 operators, founders, traders, closers, people who have done real work and want to be around other people who have done real work. The thing most members underestimate is what the room actually does for them when they're not in it. The conversations that happen at dinners in cities they're not even at. The introductions made on phone calls they're not even on. The deals that closed because someone said your name when you weren't there. I'm 25 now. My dad died in his 40s. That doesn't haunt me. It just clarifies things. I don't know how much time anyone gets. I don't know how much time I get. But I do know that whatever I build between now and whenever it ends, it has to be enough. Enough for my mum, enough for my family, enough for the version of me that was stacking shelves at 19 and didn't know if anything would ever change, enough for the kid I was at 6 who lost a man who was already building the blueprint I'd end up following. Some men inherit millions and billions of dollars. I inherited urgency. And I think if my dad could see what I've built, he'd recognize it. That's been enough.